All right, we're going to stick with college football and move on to the old college football recap. Lots of stuff going on with rivalry week. The biggest developments, we saw Ohio State go down to Michigan. Jim Harbaugh finally gets that done. And then in Bedlam, in the nightcap, you had Oklahoma State overcome the Lincoln Rowleys and the Oklahoma Sooners 37-33. And you had a little bit of a great escape there in the Iron Bowl. Drink, what stood out to you this weekend?
Well, you already know where I'm going, baby. We're going to cut off the fat and get straight to it. The Iron Bowl, the best rivalry in college football. Don't argue with me, argue with your mama. Here's the deal. Now, Alabama, listen, they had me over here in agony. That was the worst game I've seen my boys play in 12 years. 12 years. The worst game I've seen. And they still won. I mean, I've not seen a game from Alabama where, like, they could not do anything right but play defense. Can you imagine that? Defense. That defense saved Alabama this year. We've been nailing them to the cross. Pete Golden been dead for weeks, but the defense came through. It was around the time where they went for the field goal and they couldn't even get the ball on the ground correctly, where I was like, you know what? This is just not it. I don't know what's going on. But they won the game. Roll Tide. But one of the reasons I think that happened, and here's my theory. It reminded me of what Florida did last year when they lost to LSU before the SEC championship game. It's one of those things where coaches try to practice for two opponents at the same time, and whichever opponent is the lesser of the two gets, a lot less of the attention, and they focus on the one that does get most of the attention. So, last year, Florida kind of overlooked LSU to prepare for Alabama. What did that look like? They lost to LSU, showed up to the SEC championship game, and looked remarkably better than they did against LSU. And everybody's like, what the hell? Well, it's a history of this. Clemson did this against Alabama. They got, who was it? I think it was either Notre Dame or Ohio State. One of the two teams in the first round of the playoffs. They smoked them, got them on out the way, and then they rolled out their plan for Alabama. That's the way it works on the positive side. On the negative side is what you got out of Florida last year. You end up just taking 2 L's at the end of the day. What Alabama did almost was closer to what Florida did than it was what Clemson did. You go out here with your D game and you say, hey, we're gonna prep for Georgia. We're gonna give, Auburn a third of the plays because why? Bo Nix ain't playing. This guy that's playing in Bo Nix' situation, he can't beat us. He can't beat us up like Bo Nix can. He can't run. He can't improvise. He's not a dual threat. We're not worried about it. So that's how they practice. That was the belief. And then they come into the Iron Bowl and say, practice ain't like the real thing, baby. So, they was shell-shocked. That crowd getting to them, they couldn't quite get their act together. Now, I had to give kudos to my team. The defense played phenomenal. Even with the 7 points that they gave up, like midway through the second or whatnot, listen, that wasn't on them. Special teams came out here and just punt a clunker, and then Jameson Williams come down here like he forgot you can't leave with your helmet when you tackle. Like, I don't know what that was. But you're the best player. You're like one of the best players on offense, and here you come flying down like an actual jet. I know your nickname is the Jet, but you can't come flying in like that. You're a doggone Bolivnikov finalist, for God's sake. Come on with it, baby. So he comes down there. They got another 15 yards, and we lose our best weapon on offense, right? So now I'm looking at this like, yeah. So the defense gave up 7. I'm not mad at the defense. It was what it was. Like, you got dealt a bad hand. You know what I'm saying? I can't win a book in spades if I don't get a book to win, right? If I got nothing, I got nothing. So that said, boom to whoop, speed up to the fourth quarter. And yes, Alabama had a donut going through 3 quarters. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, they had a donut. I couldn't believe it. I was just flabbergasted. Going into the third quarter, you seen it. Halfway through the quarter, they kick a field goal, make it 3-10. Then with less than 2 minutes left, less than a minute left actually, they did the old what they call it, the 97-yard drive that's gonna go down in Auburn crawl. Where he ended up throwing the game time touchdown to Jacoby Brooks. That is a true freshman. That's why I think this team will be a lot better next year. And then the rest is history. Going to 4 overtimes. 24-22 is your final. A game that Alabama had no business losing or winning. For the first time ever, I looked at this game and said, I don't know if we should have lost or we should have won. I was totally confused. It was crazy. Moving on to Michigan and Ohio State, I don't have to spend that long on that one. Listen, Michigan whooped their. I mean, it was a complete control in the trenches for Michigan. They controlled the trenches from quarter 1 to quarter 4, and Ohio State had no way to adjust to it. I mean, they was running the ball when everybody knew they was going to run the ball. I mean, everybody. Oh, they're going to run the ball. Ohio State got to be able to stop this. They was number 2 in recruiting. They got this 5-star D tackle, this 5-star D tackle, this 5. Oh, they fine, man. They could. What? Nope. He's still running. Yeah. All right. I guess they're not that fine. Do you know in the last drive of that game, Michigan did not pass the ball one time? Not one time. And still drove it right on down the field. Ohio State is in trouble. Like you say, if Arizona can't win the championship with their run defense, then Ohio State damn sure wasn't gonna win the Big Ten with their run defense because it was awful. But with that said, that result was shocking because I held up the flag saying neither one of these Michigan teams would be competitive with Ohio State, and then Harbaugh said, hey, hold my beer. And that's exactly what I did, and I kept holding it because I couldn't believe what I was saying. Matter of fact, I drunk the rest of it. Here's the deal, right? Now, Michigan, playoff rankings just came out. Michigan is number 2, well-deserved. I don't have a problem with them jumping Alabama because you can't come out here and do the flop show like they did and expect to be considered one of the top 2 teams in the nation. So they jump. Well-deserved win. Now let's see, can Jim Harbaugh finish it by beating Iowa in the Big Ten championship and finally breaking through to the playoffs. And then the third game, number 7 Oklahoma State versus number 10 Oklahoma. I don't give a damn that Oklahoma State won this game. I don't give a damn that they won this game. I'm going to tell you right now, this makes me mad, and this is why I say this. Because they win this game, and then people want to tell me how much better Oklahoma State is than Alabama. Did you see their schedule? Are you kidding me right now? If you want to say they played more consistent defense, okay, I'll give you that. Even though they didn't really. I mean, go look at who did they play that was going to expose their defense? Oh, Oklahoma, they put up 33. What do you know? Oh, when they actually play a team, they're going to put up some points, right? But when you out here playing Missouri State and all this other crap, I think their out-of-conference schedule was 129 out of 130. You can miss me with how good Oklahoma State is. You can miss me with that. Cincinnati got a better schedule than that. And you know how I feel about Cincinnati's schedule. You know how I feel about it. So for all these naysayers that say, well, Oklahoma State should be higher than Alabama and Cincinnati should be. Why? Oh, because Cincinnati undefeated. So that's the only goal for Cincinnati is be undefeated. The only goal for Oklahoma State is if you lose one game and blow out everybody else, you're good. I don't get it. But Alabama is no good because they're playing down the competition or they don't play consistently. They still 11-1 in the SEC. You better show some respect out here. You better put some 11-1 in the SEC. I don't know. I mean, this argument takes 2 tones because we give Georgia their credit, well-deserved, for dominating the best conference in football. But then we say Alabama trash for losing one game in the best conference in football. But then Oklahoma State is a playoff team, right? Because they're the best team in the conference nobody give a rat's ass about. I'm just saying, man, it's kind of crazy. Either way, like you said, Oklahoma State won the rivalry game 37-33, so I think the Big 12 championship game is now Baylor versus Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken. They'll go out here and beat up Baylor, and then everybody's going to be like, oh, y'all tell you, man, these dudes. I don't know, man. Just keep the same energy. If you're tired of looking at Alabama win, just be tired of them winning. But don't move the goalposts, because I feel like that's what we do a lot. We're moving the goalposts. And I don't particularly like it. So with that said, that's my rant for those 3 games. I can't wait for championship weekend, this weekend, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I think the Cincinnati Oklahoma State piece, definitely Cincinnati has the better non-conference win with beating Notre Dame. Because Oklahoma State, I know their non-conference schedule wasn't anything, but the totality of those schedules, I don't think you mean that Cincinnati, the totality of their schedule was tougher than, like, I don't think the AAC ain't better than the Big 12.
No, it's not. It's not. But right now, most people would say Notre Dame is better than Oklahoma just because they think Notre Dame and play more consistently. If you put a poll out, I think it'll be 50-50. Think about this. Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame is what, number 5 now, I think, in the rankings.
They're 6.
Oklahoma 6. Okay, so they're 6. Oklahoma State best win is Oklahoma, and I'm assuming Oklahoma State is number 5 without me looking. So I'm just saying, like, if you take both teams' best win out, I don't know. Their schedules don't look all that different, other than the fact that Oklahoma State is going to play Baylor, and they'll probably they already beat them.
And they've already beat them. And Baylor, and they got Baylor. For what it's worth, the committee's got Baylor at 9 right now.
Okay.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I think the whole Bama Oklahoma State thing is like, you gotta also remember this, because really Oklahoma State right now, in terms of the playoff, I think we'll probably get back into some of this on Friday, but right. Oklahoma State is just really what they're doing right now, assuming they beat Baylor this weekend. They're just replacing Oklahoma in the spot Oklahoma normally gets in under Lincoln Riley. And how did that turn out for Oklahoma? They just get rolled. Bama just comes in and rolls them. So I think I'm a little bit puzzled by the notion that I've seen it on different people on social media who think they know a lot, but I'm puzzled by that, because I don't. If you're asking me, can Oklahoma State beat Alabama? I'll give them a shot, but I mean, look, there's levels. There's just levels to this. No, there's no way I'm picking, just like I wouldn't pick Oklahoma against Alabama in years past in the playoff. I'm not picking Oklahoma State to beat Alabama. I think that's just foolish. But the Cincinnati-Oklahoma State thing, I mean, it's tight because, and you've said this about Cincinnati, once you throw out that Notre Dame win, what are they going to have to hang their hat on? Particularly when, and we've said this, Cincinnati had a long stretch to where they was just kind of skating on by on some of these teams in the AAC who just ain't got nothing. So that's where I'm at. And in the end, if Alabama beats Georgia and Michigan beats Iowa, it's going to come down to Cincinnati and Oklahoma State, assuming Oklahoma State beats Baylor again. That's going to be a tight call. That's going to be tight. And I think the committee right now, if I had to guess, they're not looking forward to that. I don't think I'd be looking forward to that. If that's the situation we get, then we'll address it. But that's going to be tight, man, because, I mean, you're going to look at, like, what more could Cincinnati have done? And obviously, I get they could have used more style points, but at the same time, they won all their games. But Oklahoma State's going to have better wins. That's just facts. You're going to have 2 against Baylor, and beating Oklahoma is going to matter. So, but regardless, to this weekend, those were the 3 big games of consequence. Both Oklahoma State and Michigan, they've been they the little brother, proverbially in this rivalry. Oklahoma been beating Oklahoma State for years. We know Michigan, they ain't won a game against Ohio State in 18 years, something crazy. Harbaugh had never beat them. And look, I thought Michigan, the thing about it is you talk about that running game, and just like you said on that last drive, everybody know what's coming. It's Hassan Haskins, and he's coming to get you. And boy, oh boy, did he get him. 5 touchdowns, setting a record in that rivalry game. We had a bunch of guys, you had some guys who had 4, he gets 5. And that's the thing I was worried about. Like, Michigan's passing offense ain't nothing special, so they needed that running game. That was their best shot. And they didn't. I mean, I think they did some things in the passing game throughout the game. I thought McNamara was pretty good, but it was definitely all set up on that running game, and that's got to be concerning moving forward if you're Ohio State, because I mean we just don't see that. Normally they got some guys on that defense who can stand up and hold the line. and they got pushed around. And I thought their offensive line got pushed around too. I mean, you're looking at a guy in Aiden Hutchinson, that guy's great. And he had 3 sacks in this game. His performance shouldn't be overlooked. I think Haskins is probably the headliner for what he did. But Hutchinson, I thought he was equally as important. He had 3 sacks, and I think they all mattered. Like they all were drive killers in some respects. So, but look, Oklahoma State, man, it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't like you definitely, if you're talking about it from a playoff standpoint, you definitely would have seen them like to come in and just flex and dominate and show off that defense. But at the same time, that's a Lincoln Riley team. Caleb Williams is a heck of a player. So I'm not too mad that they gave up some points, and they showed. I still think they showed at times what they've been able to do with that defense. That defense is still really, really good. But I mean that I thought that regardless of how it turned out, as long as they won the game, considering how that series has gone, I don't think it mattered. I don't think it really mattered how it looked. Kind of like I don't think it mattered how Michigan won the game. Michigan was definitely more impressive. They just pushed Ohio State around. But I think both of those wins were equally as important. And just to Alabama, man, that was ugly. But look, that's the SEC for you, and we know, and that's why regardless, like even though Bo Nix not playing, I still was man, it's Auburn though. They're gonna no matter what Auburn's doing, they having a bad season, good season, whatever. If they at home and playing Bama, they're gonna give you something. And I really think you hit it on the head when you talk about Alabama's defense. They kept them in the game. Bama out here rolling a donut for most of the game. Then they get 3, but they held Auburn at 10 all the way up into the very last drive. And that's a drive that I think you look back and you say, man, that was that is a Heisman drive. I don't know. I mean, the final statistics don't look great. You 25-51. That's not pretty. That's not Bryce Young. But that drive was greatness. And Alabama has a great quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I know Stroud didn't come on strong for Ohio State, but that was terrific. He kept it going in overtime. You just talk about clutch, ice water in the veins, all that. That was special. And I'm looking at, you just look ahead to Bama and Georgia. Don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I think the one thing I will say is the way Bama's defense played in that game, they're gonna need a tremendous defensive effort, because I'm just looking at Bama. If their offense struggling like that against Auburn, that would lead me to believe that they're gonna have some problems with Georgia. So I think it's gonna be imperative for Alabama's defense to really come out there, stop the run, be physical out there, and they gotta make Stetson Bennett make plays. And that's the difference. It's gonna come down to, can Bama's defense, I'm not saying they got play. I don't think they can play as great as Georgia's defense, but in the end, if they can just keep them down a little bit and keep it a low scoring game, then it comes down to can Bryce Young make more plays than Stetson Bennett? I think that's a fascinating matchup. Georgia's definitely the favorite, but you definitely would be foolish to rule out Nick Saban and this kid Bryce Young.